I'm Priscilla Barrera with the Investing News Network, and here with me today is Sam Jaffe, Managing Director of Cairn ERA. Sam, thank you so much for joining us today again.
Thank you very much.
All right, so we're here in day one of the Cathodes Conference in California, which started just after the Graphites and Anodes event. What is your main takeaway so far from this week?
I think one of the most interesting things that I've come away from this is that they're trying to figure out the balance in the future demand for batteries and the future supply for materials for batteries is a lot harder than it used to be. It's all of the different factors that go into supply are getting much more complex. We've seen a come down in lithium pricing, which then impacts the capital flows into the lithium mining space. That's going to affect things, as well as lots of announcements from the end users of the batteries about what they're expecting. So balancing that supply and demand just became a lot more complicated.
All right, and let's start by talking about your outlook for lithium-ion batteries then. Can you let our audience know what is your forecast for the next few years?
So we do a lot of what we do is forecasting. So right now we think 2018 will close with having shipped about 130 gigawatt hours of batteries. We think by 2020 that's going to get up to close to 300. So already in the next 2 years it's going to grow, but it's going to double in growth. And our number for 2027, 10 years from now, is 783 gigawatt hours. So really you're talking about over 10 years a 7 or 8x growth in the battery space. And that's driven mainly by automotive, but also to some degree ESS and stationary storage. And it's driven also by price reductions in the batteries. If those price reductions don't happen, that growth is going to be less. If they happen faster, the growth is going to be more.
All right, and this year there's been a lot of talk about changing technologies in batteries. And on the anode side, there are some talks about using lithium metal. What is your take on that? When can the market expect to see maybe a real change or implemented at a mass scale?
Our take on lithium metal is unfortunately a lot more pessimistic than most people in this space. It's going to be a very expensive technology. It's going to be very difficult to do mass production. It's going to take that part of the industry a decade or more to figure out how to do it right, and how to make the costs start to come down. And if you look back at the history of lithium-ion, it started out as a very expensive battery that could do things that no other battery could do. And that's why it was so expensive, because it was a very valuable product for those guys. And it'll be the same with lithium metal. So I'm not saying that it won't appear and it won't have high growth. In fact, we think it'll be a gigawatt hour industry 10 years from now and over $1 billion in sales. But what I am saying is that it's not going to be in cars. It's not going to be in these mass market applications that require much lower cost points.
All right, and on the cathode side, there is also a lot of talk of changing chemistry. What do you think will dominate the market, and maybe what factors could potentially derail that story, if there are any?
I think number one is NMC. NMC is the king now and will continue to reign over the next 10 years and, in fact, grow in proportion of the overall market. The next question is within NMC family, the nickel-rich versus the cobalt-rich formulations of NMC. That's where it gets pretty sticky, coming up with a consensus understanding of where that will go. But the very high nickel content, like 811 cathode chemistries, are going to be hard to mass produce in the next few years. It's going to take a while before the battery manufacturers get the hang of it. So thinking that 811 NMC will come very quickly and save everybody from the cobalt monster, it's not going to happen. It's a lot more complex than that.
All right. And maybe another big topic this year has been energy storage. What do you expect will happen in that space? What is your forecast for batteries, and what should investors be paying attention to?
First of all, it's going to be a very high growth rate, higher than the automotive market. However, it's coming off a smaller base. So in the end, far more batteries will be going into cars than stationary storage under any scenario, right? But nevertheless, very high growth market. We think it's going to be around 88 gigawatt hours 10 years from now, growing from, I think, about 3 this year. So it's definitely, the growth is there, the need is there, and the reason why it's not going to dominate the battery space is it takes a much longer time period in the energy production space to get the end buyers comfortable with it, and then just to build the projects. You got minimum 5-year from issuing the RFP for the battery project to turning it on. So even though today there's a lot of announcements, you really won't see that until 2023.
All right, and my last question for you today, looking over to the overall cost of batteries, what have you seen in the past years, and what's your forecast for prices? What really needs to happen for prices to go down, if they can go down any further?
So our overall lithium-ion number for currently of all chemistries, all applications, it's about $180 per kilowatt hour. Some dramatically lower than that. So I think most automotive battery contracts are probably going in around $150 this year. But and some are doing it much lower, like Tesla's, not that much over $100. We do see it going eventually to below $100 per kilowatt hour, and that's driven by scale. It's driven by kind of a maturity and flexibility in the supply chain, and also by energy density. As the batteries become more dense, they're going to be a little bit less costly. It's just, the pricing is the most important factor. If we were still at $1,000 per kilowatt hour for lithium-ion batteries, there would be no Tesla. There would be no big, stationary storage plants going up. So pricing is most critical to understanding the future market for batteries, and it's looking good. It's looking like it's going to be below $100 per kilowatt hour.
All right, Sam, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.